Urgent Cleveland Browns fans. Do not miss this. What just happened? You won't believe this one. But before we reveal the big news, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because here, we bring you daily videos with the latest Cleveland Browns updates. And to not miss anything, activate the notifications. Hey there, Browns fans! Today, we have some shocking news that's shaking up the Cleveland Browns community. It's a story that's been developing behind the scenes, and honestly, it's one you don't want to miss. We're talking about Shedeur Sanders, a name that's been making waves across the college football landscape, and now, he's facing a very uncertain future with the Browns. That's right, just a few weeks ago, Sanders was riding high, coming off an incredible college career at Colorado, where he was the star quarterback and one of the top nil earners nationwide. Everyone thought that with his talent, charisma, and college success, he'd be a surefire shot at making an NFL roster, maybe even vying for a starting spot early on. But fast forward to today, and the picture is a lot more complicated. Sanders was drafted by Cleveland in the 5th round, 144th overall, and initially, fans thought, hey, this guy's got potential, he's got to have a shot to stick around. But now, just weeks into training camp, the reality is that his spot on the roster is anything but guaranteed. In fact, there's a real possibility that Sanders might not even make it to week 1, and that's a shocker when you think about the hype he brought coming out of college. So, what's changed? Why is this once highly touted prospect now fighting just to stay in the league? Well, let's break it down because it's a story filled with a lot of nuances that Browns fans need to understand. First, you have to look at where Sanders stands on Cleveland's depth chart. And if you do that, it's clear he's currently sitting at number 4 among quarterbacks. Behind Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and rookie Dillon Gabriel. Deshaun Watson, of course, is not even in the picture right now because he's still rehabbing that Achilles injury he sustained last season. That means Flacco is the presumed Week 1 starter, with Pickett and Gabriel as the backup options. And for Sanders, being the 5th round pick, that's a tough spot to be in. You see, in the NFL, draft position often speaks volumes about how teams view a player's potential and investment. Sanders, being a late round pick, doesn't carry the same weight as a 1st or 2nd round selection. And with Gabriel, a highly regarded quarterback from Oregon, going 62 picks ahead of Sanders, it's pretty obvious the Browns front office has a preference for the latter. Gabriel was a top Heisman finalist last year, finishing in the top 4 in New York, and that kind of college success naturally influences how teams evaluate talent. Meanwhile, Sanders, despite his impressive final college stats, over 100 yards passing and 37 touchdowns in his last season, doesn't have that same hype behind him in the NFL. And let's not forget, he was just a college star, not yet proven at this level. The Browns didn't invest draft capital in Sanders the way they did with Pickett, who was acquired via trade, or Gabriel, who they actively drafted high. That's a crucial point because it shows how much the front office values certain players over others, especially when it comes to quarterback investments. And in a league where roster spots are precious and teams don't waste draft picks, Sanders' position looks increasingly fragile. That's why many analysts and fans are starting to wonder if he's even going to make it through the preseason. There's a growing buzz that he could be cut before week 1. It's a tough pill to swallow for Browns fans who hoped Sanders would develop into a future star, but the NFL is unforgiving, and roster decisions are often made based on immediate performance, potential, and investment. Now, it's important to understand the culture shift Sanders has experienced. Back at Colorado, he was the face of the program, backed by Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, who protected his play calling and backed him up publicly. The atmosphere there was different, fueled by a winning culture and a belief that Sanders was destined for greatness. But in Cleveland, he's just another quarterback trying to prove himself in a very different environment. The stakes are higher, and the competition is fierce. It's a stark contrast, and that transition can be tough for any player, let alone a young quarterback trying to find his footing in the NFL. Plus, let's talk about the pressure. Sanders threw for over 100 yards and 37 touchdowns in college. That's impressive, no doubt. But NFL defenses are a whole different game. Speed, complexity, and physicality make success much harder to come by early in a professional career. If Sanders doesn't impress quickly during camp and preseason, he could find himself out of a job. That's the harsh reality in the NFL. Talent alone isn't enough, you need to adapt fast, perform under pressure, and fit the team's strategic plans. And, honestly, that's where Sanders stands right now, on the brink. Now, here's an interesting twist. Despite the uncertainty surrounding his roster spot, Sanders has already made a significant impact off the field. His popularity has soared, largely because of the prime effect. Jerseys bearing his name are flying off the shelves, and he's become a household name among college football fans and NFL curious alike. That kind of buzz can bring value to the Browns in many ways, from increased merchandise sales to broader fan engagement. But here's the catch, does that off-field value translate into a roster spot? That's the million-dollar question. Because, ultimately, NFL teams prioritize on-field performance and roster needs above all else. Cleveland, with a loaded quarterback room, has to weigh whether keeping Sanders is worth sacrificing a roster spot for a player who might not contribute immediately on the field. It's a tough decision, especially when you consider the long-term potential Sanders has, or perhaps had, in the eyes of some. But the NFL is a business, and the Browns have to make strategic choices that balance talent, investment, and immediate team needs. As we look ahead, the story is still unfolding. The preseason will be critical for Sanders. Every snap, every throw, every decision could be the difference between making the roster or heading elsewhere. And if he doesn't make it with Cleveland, who knows, other NFL teams might see the upside, the potential, and give him a shot. Alternatively, he could find himself exploring opportunities outside the NFL, perhaps in the CFL or other leagues, where his talent could shine in a different setting. It's a story full of ups and downs, and Browns fans should stay alert because the next few weeks are going to be pivotal. Will Sanders fight his way onto the roster? Or will he become a casualty of numbers and strategic planning? One thing's for sure, it's a storyline that's capturing everyone's attention. Browns fans, I know many of you are excited about the upcoming season, and seeing a young talent like Sanders develop is part of the thrill. But it's also a reminder of how tough and competitive the NFL really is. Every player on that roster has to prove themselves every day, and sometimes, even the most promising prospects face an uphill battle. So, as we get closer to the season, keep an eye on Sanders, keep the faith in your team, and remember, the NFL is unpredictable. What's happening with Sanders right now is a testament to that. And if he does make the cut, it'll be a story worth following, not just for Browns fans but for anyone who loves the game at its most competitive. And now, Cleveland Browns fans, I want to hear from you. What's your take on this? Do you think Sanders will make the roster? Do you believe he has the talent to succeed in the NFL, or do you see him heading to another league? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your opinion matters so much to us and to the Cleveland Browns. And don't forget, I'll be back soon with more updates, so stay tuned for the latest Cleveland Browns news. This story is far from over, and we'll be here to bring all the twists and turns right to you. Thanks for watching, Browns Nation, and as always, keep the faith and stay loyal to the Orange and Brown.